بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم رب زدني علما.
Ibn Qayyim said the honor of a knowledge is in accordance to the honor of what is being learned. If you're intelligent, you're smart, you'll know that what you need to do is strive and put your effort into beneficial knowledge. Not wasting your time with al-qeel wal-qaal, and he said this and that guy said that and I heard this and I've been hearing this and I've been hearing that, and all types of stories and dramas. That is a waste of time and not the way of the student of knowledge.
وَقُلْ رَبِّ زِدْنِي عِلْمًا.
إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا وسيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. أما بعد. So today then, insha'Allah ta'ala, we're going to start this new book, which is, as you are aware, Usool-Us-Sunnah of Al-Imaam Abu Bakr Al-Humaydi. And before we start the first section of it, we'll begin with the introduction that is written by Shaykh Abdullah ibn Abdul Rahim al-Bukhari hafidhahullah ta'ala, because it is his explanation that we are going to be using. So in the introduction he says, and he explains when he did this explanation, how that came about. So just to get an idea about this book as well, and this explanation of Shaykh al-Bukhari hafidhahullah ta'ala. He says, في صيف عام 29 و400 وألف طلب الإخوة المنظمون لدورة الإمام محمد بن عبد الوهاب رحمه الله بمكة المكرمة أن أشاركهم في دورتهم. He says in the year 1429, which is now then 16 years ago, 17 years ago, he says طلب الإخوة المنظمون لدورة الإمام محمد بن عبد الوهاب بمكة المكرمة أن أشاركهم في دورتهم. He says that year in 1429 Hijri, the organizers of a conference, the conference was known as the Conference of Al-Imam Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab in Mecca, they asked the Shaykh to participate with them. بشرح رسالة في عقيدة أهل السنة والجماعة, by giving the explanation of a small book in the Aqeedah of Ahl al-Sunnah. فأجبتهم إلى طلبهم لما في ذلك من الخير والتعاون على البر والتقوى، ولا يخفى أن مدارسة علم الاعتقاد من أشرف العلوم وأجلها. He says, so I agreed to go there, and that is due to cooperating upon goodness and righteousness and piety. And he says, everybody knows how important it is to study Aqeedah, and it's from the most important and noble of fields to study, the field of Aqeedah. So he said, I agreed to go to that conference and participate by doing the explanation of a small book in Aqeedah. And he mentions, قال الإمام ابن القيم فشرف العلم بحسب شرف معلومه وشدة الحاجة إليه وليس ذلك إلا العلم بالله وتوابع ذلك. Ibn Qayyim said the honor of a knowledge is in accordance to the honor of what is being learnt. The honor of knowledge is connected to the topic that is being studied and the importance or the level of the need people have to study that topic, and that is not going to be any other topic than the topic of learning about Allah, the knowledge of Allah and everything that follows on from that. That is going to be the greatest type of knowledge. The most nobility is going to be for that type of knowledge. And so, as Shaykh al-Bukhari said, when they requested that I do a book in Aqeedah, I agreed to go to that conference in Mecca and deliver some lectures in that field. ووقع اختيارهم على رسالة الإمام الحميدي رحمه الله المسمى بأصول السنة. And he says that they ended up selecting this book, Usool-Us-Sunnah of Al-Imaam Al-Humaydi. وبعد الانتهاء من الدروس رغب الإخوة في دار الاستقامة للنشر بمصر في طبع تفريغها الذي قام به بعض الإخوة الطلاب ليعم النفع بها، فتأملت طلبهم واستخرت الله عز وجل فوافقت على ذلك. So he went to the conference and he explained Usool-Us-Sunnah, this book we're going to do, gave the explanation at the conference, lectures. Later on he says a publishing company in Egypt, they wanted to publish his explanation as a book. Some of the students had transcribed the lectures. They had transcribed the lectures, and this publishing company in Egypt wanted to publish those lectures into a book, into an explanation. So the Shaykh says, I thought about their request, I made istikhara, and in the end he said, I agreed. So this is what it is. It's the publication from the transcription of the lessons that the Shaykh gave in that conference 16, 17 years ago in Mecca. مع العلم والإحاطة بأن هذه هي الطبعة الشرعية الوحيدة لهذا الشرح. And then he goes into explaining about the publication, etc. But then beyond that, he then goes on to mention فكل من علم علما أو وجه المتعلمين إلى سلوك طريقة يحصل لهم فيها علم فهو داع إلى الهدى. Everyone who teaches knowledge or he directs people to the teachers, those who are upon that methodology of then teaching them knowledge, and he can then tread upon that pathway of learning knowledge, then you are a caller to guidance. You are a caller to guidance. If you teach people that knowledge, or you direct people to those who can teach them that knowledge. وكل من دعا إلى عمل صالح يتعلق بحق الله أو بحقوق الخلق العامة والخاصة فهو داع إلى الهدى. And everybody who calls to righteous actions that are connected to the right of Allah or to the rights of people generally or specifically, if you're calling to that, then you are a caller to guidance. وَكُلُّ مَنْ أَبْدَى نَصِيحَةً دِينِيَّةً أَوْ دُنْيَوِيَّةً يُتَوَسَّلُ بِهَا إِلَى الدِّينِ فَهُوَ دَاعٍ إِلَى الْهُدَى. And everybody who puts forth some advice in terms of religious advice or worldly advice, which leads you to the religion, not any worldly advice, but worldly affairs that lead you to your religion, then all of that is calling to guidance once again. وَكُلُّ مَنِ اهْتَدَى فِي عِلْمِهِ أَوْ عَمَلِهِ فَاقْتَدَى بِهِ غَيْرُهُ فَهُوَ دَاعٍ إِلَى الْهُدَى. So everybody who is guided by his knowledge and then they follow in his footsteps, then that person is a caller to guidance. That person is then a caller to guidance. وَكُلُّ مَنْ تَقَدَّمَ غَيْرَهُ بِعَمَلٍ خَيْرٍ أَوْ مَشْرُوعٍ عَامٍ نَفْعٍ فَهُوَ دَاخِلٌ فِي هَذَا النَّص. So everybody who is involved in that and calling people to righteousness, then they are all counted within the hadith. Which hadith? The hadith of Abu Hurairah radiyallahu anhu, where the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, "Man da'a ila huda kana lahu min al-ajri mithlu ujuri man tabi'ahu la yanqusu dhalika min ujurihim shay'a." That whomsoever calls to guidance, then he will have the reward and the reward of the likes of those who follow him in that guidance too. And it will not decrease from their rewards at all. He will have the reward and the reward of those who follow him without decreasing anything of their own reward. وَمَنْ دَعَا إِلَى ضَلَالَةٍ كَانَ عَلَيْهِ مِنَ الْإِثْمِ مِثْلُ آثَامِ مَنْ تَبِعَهُ لا ينقص ذلك من آثامهم شيئا. And whomsoever calls to misguidance, then he will have the sin to the likes of all of those who follow him in that misguidance, and it will not decrease from their sins whatsoever. Rawahu Muslim. That hadith is in Sahih Muslim. So the opposite of the one who calls to goodness is the one who calls to misguidance. And Shaykh al-Bukhari says, فَالدَّاعُونَ إِلَى الْهُدَى هُمْ أَئِمَّةُ الْمُتَّقِينَ وَخِيَارُ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ وَالدَّاعُونَ إِلَى الضَّلَالَةِ هُمُ الْأَئِمَّةُ الَّذِينَ يَدْعُونَ إِلَى النَّارِ. That those who call to guidance, they are the Imams of Taqwa or of the Muttaqeen, of the righteous, and they are the best of the believers. Those who call to goodness and they call to guidance, then they are the best of the believers and they are the Imams of the righteous. And as for the ones who call to misguidance, then they are the Imams of those who are calling to the fire. You are calling to misguidance, you are calling to the fire. وَكُلُّ مَنْ أَعَانَ غَيْرَهُ عَلَى الْإِثْمِ وَالْعُدْوَانِ فَهُوَ مِنَ الدَّاعِينَ إِلَى الضَّلَالَةِ. And everybody who calls or helps, everybody who helps others upon misguidance and taking the people away from the truth and from the callers of truth, then that individual is a caller to misguidance. That is a brief introduction, as Shaykh Abdullah al-Bukhari mentioned. Then he goes on to mention another small introduction before coming into the actual book itself. And in this introduction, he says, فإني أحمد الله الذي لا إله غيره ولا رب سواه أن هيأ لنا هذا اللقاء العلمي، والذي نسأله جل وعلا أن يبارك لنا ولكم فيه، وأن يوفقنا وإياكم لمراضيه إنه سميع مجيب. He begins in the introduction by saying that, my brothers, I thank Allah, I praise Allah, the one whom there is no deity or Rabb besides Him. I praise Him that He made this opportunity for us to have this gathering of knowledge. Because remember, he gave this explanation as lectures. So he was telling them at the beginning that I praise Allah for having this opportunity to meet in this gathering of knowledge. And that is the way of the scholars, and that is how we should be, to thank Allah and to praise Allah for bestowing upon us this opportunity to meet in this gathering of knowledge, and how good that is, how good it is for the believers to meet and to come together in these gatherings of knowledge where Qur'an and Sunnah is being taught, the way of the Salaf is being taught, and how evil is the opposite. Those who warn against the gatherings of knowledge, those who warn against gatherings where pure Qur'an and Sunnah and the way of the Salaf is being taught. So the Shaykh, he praised Allah at the beginning for that gathering of knowledge. And he said, وَهَذِهِ الْمَجَالِسِ الْعِلْمِيَّةِ الْمُبَارَكَةِ إن شاء الله تعالى هي من باب الحفاظ والمحافظة على مدارسة العلم الشرعي. He said these gatherings, these knowledge-based, blessed gatherings, they are insha'Allah a means to preserving and safeguarding or continuing upon and looking after the affair of studying Islamic knowledge. These kinds of gatherings, that's what they bring for us, the study of Islamic knowledge, وَالدَّعْوَةِ إِلَيْهِ, and calling to that knowledge, وَبَيَانِ فَضْلِهِ لِلنَّاسِ, and clarifying the virtue of that knowledge to people, لأنه السبيل الوحيد والأوحد للنجاة والفوز برضوان الله جل وعلا لمن سار عليه حق المسير وأخذه من أصوله، أعني من الوحيين الكتاب والسنة وفق فهم سلف الأمة رضي الله تعالى عنهم وأرضاهم. And he says, because these gatherings of knowledge where you study the Qur'an and the Sunnah, they are the only way, the only pathway, the only route to salvation, to success, to victory, to gain the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is the method for the one who treads upon it, and for the one who takes the knowledge from the source, from the foundations, which is of course the revelations of the Qur'an and the Sunnah upon the understanding of the Salaf of this Ummah. وطلب العلم أيها الإخوة عبادة شرعية يحتاج فيها إلى ما يحتاج إليه في العبادات الأخرى. And seeking knowledge, it is an Islamic worship. It is a legislated worship that requires the same as what any other worship requires. The two pillars من توفر ركني العبادة وهما الإخلاص والمتابعة للنبي صلى الله عليه وسلم, and that is sincerity and following the Sunnah of the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم. Those two are needed in seeking knowledge, because seeking knowledge is an act of worship, just like any other act of worship. So sincerity is needed in it, and following the Sunnah is needed in it. فلا يصل إلى تحقيق العلم إلا من تحلى بآدابه وتخلى عن آفاته. So nobody can achieve knowledge unless you adorn yourself with the etiquettes of knowledge, and you stay clear of the pitfalls that may surround your seeking of knowledge. ولهذا كان طلب علم الكتاب والسنة له مكانة عظيمة في الشريعة المطهرة. And that's why seeking knowledge of the book and the Sunnah, it has a high and great rank and station in the Sharia, in the pure Sharia. ولأصحابه وعد لمن علم فعمل به مخلصا متبعا ووعيد لمن تخلف عن تحقيقه بعد علمه به. And that's why Shaykh Abdullah al-Bukhari حفظه ta'ala says that there is a promise for those who seek the knowledge and they act upon it with sincerity and following the Sunnah. They are promised goodness. And there is a threat upon those who abandon this knowledge or learning it and acting upon it thereafter. That's why Al-Imaam Ibn Al-Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala said, أعلى الهمم في طلب العلم طلب علم الكتاب والسنة. The highest of your striving and your goals and your objectives is to seek knowledge of the Qur'an and the Sunnah. That is the high and lofty purpose and goal that a person should strive for. والفهم عن الله وعن رسوله صلى الله عليه وسلم نفس المراد وعلم حدود المنزل. And having an understanding of that from Allah and His Messenger, and being within the bounds of what has been revealed. وأخص همم طلاب العلم قصر همته على تتبع شواذ المسائل. And the lowest objective and lowest goal and lowest effort a person can put into seeking knowledge is where there are people who are only seeking knowledge of the offshoots of knowledge, the random topics here and there, those topics that are not from the mainstream knowledge. وَمَا لَمْ يَنْزِلْ وَلَا هُوَ وَاقِعٌ, issues that never even occur. And people are looking into them, what if this and what if that, and looking into these offshoots of issues that never even occur in reality. Why is your objective and your time being put into those branches or offshoots that are not from the core of the knowledge that you need, those offshoots barely, if ever, even occur in reality. So the Shaykh says, or he mentions from Ibn al-Qayyim, that it's a mistake basically for a student to be going after those kinds of topics like that. أو كانت همته معرفة الاختلاف وتتبع أقوال الناس. Or that a student, all he does is focus on the differences. What are the differences here? And what are the issues here? What was the conflict there? And to follow up on the statements of the people. ليس له همة إلى معرفة الصحيح من تلك الأقوال. But he doesn't focus on actually finding out what the truth is, what the actual truth from all of those statements is. وقل أن ينتفع واحد من هؤلاء بعلمه. And how rare it is, Ibn al-Qayyim said, that a person who engages in those types of things will actually ever benefit from his knowledge. That's so important, that a student of knowledge focuses on al-ilmu nafi', the beneficial knowledge. Not focusing on offshoots and random topics and this and that. And it is not from the core of the knowledge. And how much that happens these days. How much it happens these days that the people, their focus is on offshoots, some random thing here, some random topic there, and they are not focused on the core of knowledge. They spend hours and hours and time, so much time, reading into this particular niche topic somewhere, or that particular offshoot of an issue somewhere. And what are they going to benefit from that? Ibn al-Qayyim says, very rare that a student of knowledge actually comes away with benefit like that. Benefit is when you focus on the core issues, the fundamentals, the principles, and you start learning those of the religion, not offshoot random topics or some niche issue down there, but the core and the fundamentals of this religion, the principles of this religion, the usul. That is what is needed. So Shaykh al-Bukhari says, فَمَنْ رُزِقَ مَا أَشَارَ إِلَيْهِ مِنَ الْهِمَّةِ الْعَالِيَةِ في تحقيق هذا المطلب النفيس فقد هدي وفاز. So whomsoever is blessed, is given that blessing to what Ibn al-Qayyim highlighted, that you are one of those students who has those high aims and goals and objectives and effort and striving to learn the core of this knowledge and to achieve it and gain it, then insha'Allah you have been guided to that knowledge, you've been guided to goodness, and you are successful. Then he mentions some lines of poetry from Al-Allama Abd al-Rahman al-Sa'di in his Manzuma في القواعد الفقهية. اعلم هديت أن أفضل المنن علم يزيل الشك عنك والدرن ويكشف الحق لذي القلوب ويوصل العبد إلى المطلوب. In these two lines of poetry, Al-Allama Abd al-Rahman al-Sa'di highlights that the best, the knowledge that you are being bestowed is that knowledge that removes doubts from you. It gives you certainty and knowledge and understanding, removes the doubts from you, and makes clear the truth to your heart. And so that servant is then able to reach his goal of that knowledge and understanding and comprehension of the religion. So, Shaykh al-Bukhari says, في هذين البيتين ما ذكر في هذين البيتين ما يزيل عن القلب الشبهات والشهوات وهو العلم النافع. So he mentioned in these two lines of poetry the knowledge that removes doubts and desires from you. And that is the knowledge which is al-ilm al-nafi', the beneficial knowledge. Knowledge of the fundamentals of the religion, knowledge of the principles of the religion, the usul, the core, not knowledge of some random topic over there or some random issue over there, and everybody is spending hours on that and hours on that and watching YouTube videos on this and reading articles and books on that, but rather al-ilm al-nafi', the beneficial knowledge that removes the doubts and the desires from a servant. ولا شك أن الشبهات تورث الشك والشهوات تورث درن القلب المفضي إلى خمول البدن عن الطاعات والقربات لله تعالى. And there is no doubt that the doubts, they create this confusion within a person. The different types of doubts, they create doubt within the heart of a person. And desires, they create this murkiness within the heart of a person, such that it leads to the laziness of the body from obedience to Allah and from seeking closeness to Allah. Those desires, they cause that murkiness and that destruction within the heart of a person, such that it brings about laziness within that individual from obedience to Allah and worship of Allah. فجعل رحمه الله علامة العلم النافع أن يزيل هذين المرضين والآفتين العظيمتين ويجلب للعبد في مقابلهما شيئين: اليقين الذي هو ضد الشك، والإيمان التام الموصل للعبد لكل مطلوب، والذي يثمر عملا صالحا وذلك ضد الشهوات. So Shaykh al-Bukhari hafidhahullah ta'ala says that the Shaykh As-Sa'di has made the sign or the indicator of what beneficial knowledge is. How do you identify it? Beneficial knowledge is the one that removes those two diseases from you: the disease of doubts and the disease of desires. That is the beneficial knowledge, the one that removes those illnesses from you. And so by removing them, it provides you with certainty, which is the opposite of doubt. And it provides you iman and certainty, and righteous actions, which is the opposite of being in desires. So that is what al-ilm al-nafi' does for a person. فكلما ازداد العبد علما نافعا ازداد يقينه وكمل إيمانه وإرادته. So the more a person increases in beneficial knowledge, then the more your certainty in the religion, in Allah, increases. And the more your iman is perfected then, and your goals and intentions are perfected then. وبهذين الأمرين تتم السعادة للعبد والفلاح والفوز. And then by having that, the success and the happiness and victory is completed and perfected for that servant. As Allah said, وَجَعَلْنَا مِنْهُمْ أَئِمَّةً يَهْدُونَ بِأَمْرِنَا لَمَّا صَبَرُوا وَكَانُوا بِآيَاتِنَا يُوقِنُونَ. That we made from them leaders who were guided by our affair when they were patient, and they were certain in our ayat. They were certain in our ayat. They had certainty. Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah, he said, الخير والسعادة والكمال والصلاح منحصر في نوعين: في العلم النافع والعمل الصالح. Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah said, goodness and happiness and perfection or completion and righteousness, they are all restricted within these two affairs: beneficial knowledge and righteous actions. Ibn Taymiyyah mentioned that. Goodness and happiness and completion in your affairs and righteousness, they are all within beneficial knowledge and righteous actions. So then Shaykh Abdullah al-Bukhari hafidhahullah ta'ala said, الحاصل أيها الإخوة, so the conclusion here, أن العلم النافع يثمر عملا صالحا. That beneficial knowledge, it produces righteous actions. وقولا صالحا, and righteous statements. والجهل يورث والعياذ بالله عملا سيئا وقولا سيئا خبيثا. And ignorance, jahl, it produces, and we seek refuge with Allah, it produces evil actions and evil, disgusting speech. And how true is that there? What Shaykh al-Bukhari mentions there, hafidhahullah ta'ala, that beneficial knowledge produces righteous actions and righteous and good statements. You see goodness from that person who is upon beneficial knowledge, seeking it, learning it, putting his time into it. You see goodness in that person's speech. You see goodness in that person's actions. But as for the one who is upon ignorance, jahl, then you see evil from his statements, his speech, and you see that evil in his actions. And so a person should judge himself. Does a person speak with goodness and behave upon goodness? Or does a person only ever speak upon bad and behave upon badness? Talking about this one and that one from his brothers or from his community, and backbiting and storytelling and lying and other affairs, then you can tell this is a person who is not engaged in talabul ilm and seeking beneficial knowledge. More than likely this person is more engaged in jahl and ignorance. That's why you see his behavior is of evil speech, and you see his actions are of evil speech. Then Shaykh al-Bukhari said, فالحصيف العاقل يحرص كل الحرص على أن يجتهد في تحصيل العلم النافع لينتفع ويرتفع بأمر الله جل وعلا. He says, so the intelligent person will strive to the best of his ability to gain that beneficial knowledge. If you're intelligent, you're smart, you'll know that what you need to do is strive and put your effort into beneficial knowledge. Not wasting your time with al-qeel wal-qaal, and he said this and that guy said that, and I heard this and I've been hearing this and I've been hearing that, and all types of stories and dramas. That is a waste of time and not the way of the student of knowledge. The student of knowledge strives to continuously, constantly gain that beneficial knowledge. In order to benefit from it, لينتفع ويرتفع بأمر الله جل وعلا. So that he benefits from that knowledge and he elevates, he becomes elevated by that knowledge. And that could mean lots of things. You become elevated in and of yourself because you have greater iman and you worship Allah, you are elevating yourself. And as we mentioned also last time, the stories of how some of the Imams were elevated by Allah in their station and rank and the respect people had for them by virtue of that knowledge that they gained. Then the Shaykh mentions some statements of Ibn al-Qayyim. He says, وَلِلْإِمَامِ Ibn al-Qayyim كلام نفيس مفيد في كتاب نافع جدا الفوائد يعرفك حقيقة هذا العلم وماهيته وأسباب فساده. الشيخ al-Bukhari حفظه says that Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala has some very beneficial and valuable speech, some very beneficial and valuable statements he made in the book Al-Fawaid. In that, he clarifies to you the reality of knowledge. What is exactly this knowledge? And some of the reasons that can corrupt this knowledge for you. He says, فَائِدَةٌ فِي أَقْسَامِ الْعُلُومِ. Ibn al-Qayyim mentioned a benefit regarding the different types of knowledge. He says, العلم نقل صورة المعلوم من الخارج وإثباتها في النفس. That knowledge, it is transferring the details of something that you understand or learn about, transferring those details to within yourself. So now you have gained knowledge about that thing. Somebody now wants to learn about how to make the microphones. They go and study and they learn and they open it up. They are transferring that knowledge to themselves. They are now learning how to do those things. That is what knowledge is. The transfer of those details and that comprehension to yourself. فإن كان الثابت في النفس مطابقا للحقيقة في نفسها فهو علم صحيح. And so that which becomes established within yourself, if it is in conformity to that reality, then that is the true knowledge. وكثيرا ما يثبت ويتراءى في النفس صور ليس لها وجود حقيقي فيظنها الذي قد أثبتها في نفسه علما وإنما هي مقدرة لا حقيقة لها. He says, so often people, they transfer knowledge from what they learn to themselves, but in reality what they have learned and taken on board is not actually knowledge, because the reality of that is not actually reality, meaning it's not beneficial knowledge. What they are learning is a waste of time, and it may or may not be true. Affairs that are not from the core of knowledge, and they take all of that in, and that is not beneficial knowledge. وأكثر علوم الناس من هذا الباب. Ibn al-Qayyim says the majority of knowledge people have is that type. Useless knowledge that may or may not be true, often not even true, various things here, there, everywhere. They're taking all of this, watching this, looking at that, YouTube videos, taking in all types of knowledge. But in reality, it's nothing. all of that is useless and futile and it's nothing in reality. The majority of people, Ibn al-Qayyim says, their knowledge is that type, the useless type. وَمَا كَانَ مِنْهَا مُطَابِقًا لِلْحَقِيقَةِ فِي الْخَارِجِ فَهُوَ نَوْعَانِ. And the knowledge that actually is in conformity to that which is in the real world, that is two types. نوع تكمل النفس بإدراكه والعلم به وهو العلم بالله وأسمائه وصفاته وأفعاله وكتبه وأمره ونهيه. So the first type of knowledge is the one that is false, and the majority of people have that useless false knowledge. Now the knowledge that is actually true knowledge. But even true knowledge is two types. So even things that are factual, you still cannot just sit there and say, well, this is factual. This is the real world. I need to learn this. Not necessarily. Because even factual, real world things are two types. One is نوع تكمل النفس بإدراكه والعلم به. A type of that true knowledge that perfects yourself. It betters yourself and gives you perfection within yourself. And that is the knowledge of Allah and the names and attributes of Allah. That type of knowledge and the books and revelations and the commandments and prohibitions, that is obviously true knowledge in reality. And seeking and gaining that kind of knowledge perfects you on the inside. But then there is a type of true knowledge, factual knowledge, that does not perfect you and do goodness for you on the inside by achieving it, even though it may be factual and true knowledge. نوع لا يحصل للنفس به كمال وهو كل علم لا يضر الجهل به فإنه لا ينفع العلم به وكان النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم يستعيذ بالله من علم لا ينفع. So important. Ibn al-Qayyim here says, the other type of knowledge which is factual, it's factual knowledge, it is. But it is a type of knowledge that does not improve you on the inside, unlike the knowledge of the names and attributes of Allah, etc. This is a type of knowledge, as factual as it may be, it's a type of knowledge, and look at this way to explain it, a type of knowledge that will not harm you if you are ignorant of it. It doesn't harm you not knowing it. Factual as it may be, it doesn't harm you not knowing it. Unlike the first type of factual knowledge, harms you not knowing it. You need to learn about Allah and the names and attributes of Allah. But other type of worldly things that may well be factual, worldly things that you can live without and it's no problem. It will not harm you not knowing them. Then that, if that's the case, it is a type of knowledge, factual as it may be, it's a type of knowledge that won't affect you whether you know it or not. You've no need to know it. You can be ignorant of it and it won't do any harm to you. If that definition applies to this type of knowledge, then it is a type of knowledge that is not beneficial knowledge. If you can do without that knowledge and it's of no consequence to you, then it can't be beneficial knowledge. If it was beneficial knowledge, you would need it and you wouldn't be able to live without it. Beneficial knowledge you need. But if it's a type of knowledge you can live without and it's not going to harm you not to know it, then that must be a type of knowledge that is not beneficial knowledge. And you do not benefit by learning it. And that's why the Prophet ﷺ used to ask Allah to protect him from ilm la yanfa', knowledge that does not benefit. The Messenger used to make dua asking Allah to protect him from knowledge that does not benefit, knowledge that does not bring you any good. Then Ibn al-Qayyim says, وَهَذَا حَالُ أَكْثَرَ الْعُلُومِ الصَّحِيحَةِ الْمُطَابِقَةِ التي لا يضر الجهل بها شيئا كالعلم بالفلك ودقائقه ودرجاته وعدد الكواكب ومقاديرها والعلم بعدد الجبال وألوانها ومساحاتها ونحو ذلك. Ibn al-Qayyim then says that the majority of the what may be termed as factual knowledge comes under that category. That it's knowledge you can live without and it doesn't harm you not knowing it. Majority of the sciences and the knowledge come under that. He gives examples. He says, for example, certain affairs of astronomy, learning about certain things about space and the stars and the planets and various issues. Even if you don't know any of that, doesn't affect you and it doesn't harm you. You don't need to know about those affairs. Most of us learnt about those up until GCSE. After that, nothing. Never looked into that, never read into that. Alhamdulillah, has not affected any of us and it doesn't matter. It's not knowledge that you need. It doesn't harm you. About the number of stars, the number of planets and looking into all those things, you don't need that. If somebody has a speciality in that or whatever particular field it may be, they specialize in that, that's their job, okay. But generally otherwise, that doesn't harm you not knowing those things. He talks about certain geographical types of knowledge, meaning you could summarize this into general academic knowledges. He mentions here geography and about the mountains and the colors of the mountains and geology. You don't know about those things, it doesn't harm you. If you don't know about these geographic terms and geological issues and things, no problem. Doesn't affect your religion, doesn't affect your iman, doesn't affect you if you don't have knowledge of those things. You have the knowledge to the amount that is in the Qur'an and the Sunnah about these affairs, about how Allah made these mountains and sun and moon, and yes, that's mentioned in the Qur'an. You have knowledge of that and you see these great signs of Allah. But then to now know about the geology and how it works and the different layers and how sediments build up and all types of things, you don't know about any of that, it doesn't harm you. So generally there it's about all these academic sciences and academic fields. You don't need to go in and have detailed knowledge about them. If a person has that as his field of study, you particularly studied a particular field, no problem. You study that particular academic field because that was your route to then your employment, etc. So be it. But as for generalizing it now that we are all in need of that knowledge, no, we're not. So this is what Ibn al-Qayyim says. The majority of these academic kind of knowledges and general knowledges, they are in that category that you could suffice without them and it wouldn't harm you. So that isn't the beneficial knowledge you need to strive after. Nobody's going to say to you, you need to go learn about geology. You need to go learn about geography. You need to learn about how these mountains and their layers and the earth and the crust and the mantle and the core, and you got to go learn all those things. No, you don't. You don't at all. It doesn't harm you not knowing those details and specifics. So this is all from the statement of Ibn al-Qayyim. And it's very important because how many people fall into it? How many people out there today, they focus on things that are not from the principles of the religion. The Ikhwan al-Muslimin and the likes of these people, they pick up on topics on politics. The politics going on in this country, the politics going on there, and this ruler what he did and that ruler what he did, and debates and TV debates, and their focus is on all of that type of thing. And they do not even in their life, they don't even know what Usool-Us-Sunnah of Al-Imaam Al-Humaydi is. They don't even know who this is, Al-Imaam Al-Humaydi, Usool-Us-Sunnah. Don't even know, never heard of it. But as for politics, what's going on with this country and what's going on over there, what's happening here, they know the details inside and out. News here, news there, watching, reading, YouTube. Why? You could live without all of that knowledge and specifics of it. Having general knowledge of that, excellent, good, yes. What's going on around you in the world, have knowledge of that, of course. Have a general knowledge of what's happening and be aware and up to date, of course. Nobody is saying shut off the news and don't know anything anywhere. Of course you know what's happening and you are up to date and aware of what's going on in the world around you. Of course you are. But nobody is saying you're going to spend the majority of your week now delving and digging into all these things, finding papers and articles and YouTube videos, and your whole life revolves around this and revolves around that topic and this topic and what's going on in this country and the politics over there and this ruler over there. That is the problem and that is the issue that so many people fall into. And you know that because you could ask a person, tell me about Usool-Us-Sunnah of Al-Imaam Al-Humaydi, tell me about 3 fundamental principles of Shaykh Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab, tell me about Al-Qawaid Al-Arba'a, the 4 fundamental principles. What are the 4 principles? And they don't know. But you talk to them about worldly things going on, worldly issues and worldly politics and worldly economics and things, MashaAllah, they'll give you the whole detailed breakdown. And that shows that their priorities are wrong and they are focused on knowledge that isn't the beneficial knowledge. So it's very important to understand that. فَشَرَفُ الْعِلْمِ, so the nobility of knowledge, بِحَسَبِ شَرَفِ مَعْلُومِهِ. The nobility of knowledge, it depends on the topic. So when the topic is about Allah, then that is going to be the most noble of knowledge. Names and attributes and all these affairs are going to be from the most noble of knowledge because it is to do with Allah. And so that what makes it honorable and noble. وَلَيْسَ ذَلِكَ إِلَّا الْعِلْمِ بِاللَّهِ وَتَوَابِعْ ذَلِكَ. So that knowledge that the people are in need of, شِدَّةُ الْحَاجَةِ إِلَيْهِ, is the knowledge of Allah and everything that follows that. Very important to focus on what Ibn al-Qayyim is saying there about the knowledge and where you need to put your time into. Because if you consider, if you think about it, you don't have enough time in your life to do everything. A person might say, well, why not do it all? I'll put 10 hours a week into studying 3 principles, Aqeedah, Fiqh, Seerah, do it all. I memorize everything. I memorize Qur'an every week. I do Hadith every week. I put 10 hours a week into all of this. Then what's wrong with me putting a few more hours then into the worldly affairs going on politics and everything else? I'm balancing things out. The reality is you're not. Because you don't have enough time in your life, even if you live for 80 years or 100 years. You don't have enough time in your life to cover just the Islamic knowledge, let alone go outside of it. You don't have enough time. They used to say, one of the mashayikh in Saudi, he said, if you live for 90 years, let's imagine, or he gave an example like this. If you live till the age of 90, every day, 24 hours in a day, we sleep on average, make it nice and easy mathematics, 8 hours a day. A third of every day. Which means out of a lifespan of 90 years, you've slept for 30 years. It's amazing. A lifespan of 90 years, you've been asleep 30 years of that 90 years. Because you sleep a third of every single day of your life. 8 hours out of 24 hours every day of your life. So if you live for 90 years, 30 years of your life has gone asleep. You've only actually been awake to do something for 60 years of your life out of 90. Out of that 60 years, well, let's talk about it in a way to understand your day. So 8 hours of your day gone in the sleep, 2/3 left. 2/3 of your day left then, 16 hours. From that 16 hours, obviously you've got to do your prayers, you're going to eat, you have to look after other affairs of nature, various things occur. Now people have work, You have to work 9 till 5, your shift, all of those things. Out of that 16 hours with your family responsibilities and your work and this and that, we know the reality. You have barely 2 hours a day left to study, if that. When you do all of your responsibilities, you're going to be left with maybe a couple of hours a day. 2 hours a day out of your 24 hours. So if that's all you've got, and let's push the boundaries and say you get 5 hours a day. Even in 5 hours a day, bringing you to 35 hours a week. And you do that every week. How long would it take you firstly to memorize all of the Qur'an? And then to go through all of Sahih al-Bukhari. Right now we have Sahih al-Bukhari. Thousands of hadith. Do all of us know every hadith in Sahih al-Bukhari? We don't? Then how are we watching YouTube videos about politics and other things going on? And you don't even know all of the hadith in Sahih al-Bukhari yet. You haven't even gone through all of the narrations in Sahih Muslim yet. There is so much knowledge in Islam to study that if you spent your 60 years, assuming you live till 90, you spent your 60 years when you're awake in that knowledge, you wouldn't finish from it. You wouldn't finish. So if you're not even going to be able to finish Islamic knowledge despite a 90-year lifespan, then where are you finding time to watch your YouTube videos and to read your books on this and articles on that? It means you're taking away from your Islamic knowledge time even more of that time you're taking away, and so you're going to end up with even less knowledge. The reality is like that. The reality is like that. A very easy way to understand for most people is when you have an exam. When you have an exam and you do not the proverbial, but the real life all-nighter. People do the all-nighter. So they revise that whole 24 hours leading up to the exam in their books. The whole day and night up to that exam, the all-nighter. That night, when you've got that important exam the next day, you know you need every hour of that day and night, the 24 hours or so leading up to that exam. You know you're not going to touch anything other than the book for the exam. The topic, the subject of the exam. You're not going to sit there and say, okay, I'll do an all-nighter. I'm going to revise the whole book. It's 200 pages, but from 2 a.m. till 5 a.m., those 3 hours, I'm actually going to go relax and watch YouTube videos on something else. Anybody do that? No. Because you know you need every hour to squeeze in the knowledge to just about get enough maybe for the exam. And that's exactly our whole life. We have just enough time, or not even, we don't even have enough time to get through all of the material. So the same example of the exam, imagine your book you have to revise for your exam tomorrow is 500 pages or 3 volumes, 2,000 pages. You know you're not going to get through it all before the exam tomorrow. But you're going to do an all-nighter to try and get through as much as possible. You're going to do your all-nighter to get through as much as possible, at least to try and get as good a grade as you can at least. So you know you haven't got enough time in that all-nighter to finish the 3 volumes at 2,000 pages. But you're going to do as much as you can. If you now take out an hour to relax, you're going to end up with even less material covered than you might have done if you spent all of your time in it. So that's exactly what it is. In your life now, every hour, every week, every month you take out onto all types of politics and worldly issues that you could live without, you are taking away time from your Islamic studies. This is the point the Shaykh is making. Islamic knowledge is the key. Don't waste your time on worldly affairs. Have a general knowledge of what's going on and you're up to date, and that's it. As for research and study and reading and books and YouTube, that should only be upon Islamic knowledge and Islamic learning. So we'll stop on that point for today. Inshallah ta'ala, the next point here, we'll start next week, which is about the things that corrupt your knowledge. So this is all a very good introduction to this book and for all of the studies that we do the rest of our lives. This is a general introduction that will apply to everything. So we'll continue with it from next week then inshallah at the same time 8:15 p.m. وصلى الله على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم.